Morning everyone, just Michelle. I just wanted to do a quick video on a Saturday morning just because I didn't get a chance yesterday, although I had a little bit of exciting news. So as you know, we've been working very hard as a committee on drafting and developing the new Paraplanner standard, the international standard for paraplanners, which is it gives me literally goosebumps when I read it because I can see the benefits to the paraplanning profession of this standard. And the committee have just worked so hard, so it's obviously quite nice when we get little stories to share like this. So paraplanning for me has been unrecognised as a profession. For example, yesterday I spoke to a paraplanner who is one exam away from being fellow. He isn't authorised in this particular firm, and he's having a bit of an identity crisis. He is being compared to, he's kind of living in the world between administrator and planner, and he's not yet feeling recognised for the role that he's in. So after a little pep talk from me and a little chat through kind of the plans and where his profession will sit in the next few years, obviously he felt quite good about himself. Now, add to that, this week I got chatting to an advisor who's a client of ours, runs a firm, his own business. There's probably about 7 or 8 of them in this business, but he's obviously recruiting, and he's recruiting a paraplanner. Now, this was interesting, right? I didn't quite expect what he was going to tell me, but because I think I'd just not really thought about it and had no need to up until this point. So he said to me that he'd had a candidate that had applied for a job, and this candidate had claimed in the first interview that they were working towards the paraplanner standard. Now, I was quite interested on getting a bit of a take from the advisor on what did he think about this. So we'd had a little chat, and he was saying, well, is this guy going through the paraplanner standard? And, we had a little chat around that. And we were also talking about what the paraplanners were saying about this standard. So, why did they feel it was essential to raise it at their interview? Which I think is actually quite interesting, because this is where we're hoping it's going to go as a committee. So that was fine. So the guy obviously said that he was working towards the standard and that he'd apply, which was absolutely true, which was really positive. And I then chatted to the advisor about his take on the standard and why it was important. And as it actually happens, I actually think that this guy is going to get selected over other paraplanners. Now, not necessarily because of anything other really than the fact that he has the standard or will be working towards the standard. And when I asked, the advisor made a very valid point, and it's a common point that I get people share with me, is that it doesn't matter how qualified a paraplanner is, and we all know this, so I'm not teaching anybody anything that they don't already know, but it doesn't actually matter how qualified that person is. It's their ability to do the job independently and using their own, own processes around what they feel is right, the right solution, collaborating with that advisor, and that's where experience comes in. So the knowledge, yes, and some had knowledge that he'd interviewed, but actually what he was looking for was not just the knowledge, but that standard, that how would you describe it? That kind of that desire to go higher was really quite keen, really quite key for the interview process. So I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how the second interviews are going to go, or the third interviews, or whatever this firm's particularly going to do. But what it really confirmed for me is that we're on the right track. We're not quite there yet. The standard is, literally the closing date from the committee was yesterday for the last super final draft of amends, which was Friday. So I've got a few emails to read over the weekend, but next week we start looking into getting some funding from a massive pot of money that the government have invested into development in financial services. So we're looking at that, and that's very exciting for next week. And so the reason, actually, just while I'm on this video, to give you all a bit of an update on that, is the reason we haven't launched it, as far as the only thing really we haven't confirmed is the price. And that's because we're not exactly sure what the process is going to be. And we were sure, and we had a price, which some of you may have picked up in the press and articles and things, but actually we haven't yet firmed that up, because one, we're trying to establish if there's funding support available to you, which ultimately allows us to be able to pack more into the process. So training, development, some exam study support, there's tons and tons of stuff that if we can secure this funding, fingers crossed we can, then I'm going to be able to provide much more into that process, because this is very price sensitive as a standard, and I'm very aware of this. So that's it, really. Just wanted to share my little story with you from this week, and I hope that's been helpful. And if any of you have any questions on the standard or the process, then whack an email over to the team at Enquirers at Standards International. We'll be more than happy to keep you updated with what's going on, and that would be my pleasure. Have a fabulous weekend whenever you're listening to this video, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.